You are listening to the Bold Dreams Held Loosely podcast, the go-to podcast for soul-led coaches, leaders, and healers. My name is Taryn Watts, and I am a master certified coach and the founder of the Mind Rebel Academy, an ICF-accredited coaching school where we train and support people to fully express their purpose through world-class coaching skills. Join me and fellow faculty member Michelle Theriault as we dive into the world of coaching and model what it looks like to live deeply examined lives. Inside these episodes, we have raw, honest, very human conversations that are expanding our minds, opening us up to new possibilities, and keeping us steadfastly committed and focused to walking our path towards our deepest yearnings and greatest visions. And our intention is that they do the same for you. Enjoy. Laura, welcome.
Hello, Taryn.
So this episode is going to be a little different. Laura is a alumni of the Mind Rebel Academy, and she is also has become a dear friend through this process. You've been on the podcast before, Laura. Laura is also an incredibly gifted Reiki master. I have traveled to Montreal to experience her magic a couple times now. Laura, you reached out to me a couple weeks ago. And you had questions, you had business questions. And I thought, let's jump on a podcast and let's record this conversation, because I have a feeling that a lot of the questions that you have, other people might have. And so this is going to be a completely unfiltered, unscripted kind of Q&A back and forth. Laura, I am going to be a wide open book, as you know, as I always am, but I'm going to be a wide open book as you ask questions about my experience building a soul-led business and the ups, the downs. I will not sugarcoat a thing. And I am of service to you and any questions that you have for me in this episode.
Thank you, Taryn. I expressed my gratitude right before you hit the recording button, and I want to say thank you. And as we were also sharing, it is not the same when we listen to someone in a masterclass or even in the wonderful business one that you crafted for us with all these amazing women and teachers and specialists. But when we hear the truth from someone that is actually going through that or that has gone through it, it takes another dimension. So I think I really believe that this will help a lot of us. So thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. Okay, so let's dive in. I feel weird. It's been me making questions.
Last time we were here, I was asking you all the questions.
Yeah. Okay, so well, I think for all the people who have received training from you, we know the general idea about your journey and how you had a very stable corporate job, and then one day you surrender to the yearnings of your soul and you made the jump to become a coach. And we learned that it was even hard for you to say the words, I am a coach, which is absolutely what happens to I would say most of us. So that part we know, and maybe I will come again to that point, but I was wondering to start, when you, let's say, got the first couple of clients, when you noticed and felt that, okay, this is something, this is real, and maybe one client refer you to the next client, what were the first steps that you had to take to move forward? Like when you finally notice, okay, this is real. What happened next?
Mm, what a beautiful time that was. You've taken me right back to that moment, and I'll never forget this moment. I had been coaching for many years before that moment. And so the day I graduated from my coach training was the day I gave birth to my son. It was the same day I became a mother. And so for those early years of my son's life, coaching took a bit of a back seat. I would coach here and there when I was on maternity leave. And so for several years while my kids were, especially when my son was really little, coaching was just something I was dabbling in. When I went back to work after my daughter was born, and I realized that there's no more maternity leaves. I'm done having children. This is now it till I retire.
Mm.
And I realized that I can't be away from my babies if I'm not doing something I love. And I realized, well, I love coaching. And at the time I was dabbling in it, I'm not sure if I knew I was, I don't know if at that point I really believed I was exceptional at it. I was just dabbling in it here and there. And then I had, you have certain conversations, or you meet certain people, or you have certain experiences, and they're life-changing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll never forget this moment with my very first, I call her my first client, although she really wasn't. I had other, I dabbled in exchanges. She was my first paying client, and she worked at the same corporation as me, at the same job as me. We didn't know each other very well. In fact, we had chatted at an event. And at the time she was selling Arbonne, and she was telling me about Arbonne and what she was doing with Arbonne. And she was asking me, what I was doing. And she was the first person I said, I'm actually coaching on the side. And she said, what is that? And so I told her a little bit about it, and she wanted to go for coffee to learn a bit more. And then she asked me, well, how do I work with you? Like, what are your prices? And I was like, oh my gosh, I prices. Oh my goodness. Like this was the moment for, and so what I did with her was I decided that I'm going to create a program with her. I wanted more structure to the coaching I was doing. I wanted to create a structure, an experience for someone to go through an actual, like a curriculum with me. And this was the birth of the Mind Rebel method. And so I signed her up, and I said to her, I want to build this program out with you. Are you in? And she said, yes, I am in. And so week over week, we met, and I built the curriculum as we were going through our engagement, our 12-week engagement together. And that was the very first iteration of the Mind Rebel method coaching curriculum that now our alumni and our students are trained to deliver if they wish. And I remember getting close to the end of that curriculum with her. And her name was Sylvie, and she's an extraordinary human. And I know she wouldn't mind me sharing this because she's actually graduated from the MRA as a coach as well. And I remember her looking at me one day, right, like right in my eyes, and looking at me one day and saying, she looked at me and she said, why are you not doing this full time? Like, you are really, really exceptional at this. And it was the first moment I realized that there was something here. Like that there was something, this felt so good every time I would meet with her. every time I would hold space for her, every time I would take her through another piece of the curriculum and coach and peel back the layers and watch her evolve, watch her meet herself, watch her claim what it is she wanted in the world, watch her close the gap from where she was today, where she wants to be. Every time I was in that energy with her, I felt the most alive and aligned. This was designed for my soul to express through. That I knew. And then to have her confirmation coming back me to say, you are exceptional at this. In that moment, I believed her, and something inside my mind clicked and changed. And it was a moment of, this is what I'm going to do. This is who I'm going to be. I'm doing this. This was a moment of, okay, I'm all in with 2 feet. And I'm claiming this. So to answer your question, Laura, there was a real, I had to claim it. This is who I am. This is what I'm going to do in the world. This is how I want to serve. This is my vision for my life. And I vowed to, I remember how much even we were exchanging payment at the time. It was $50 a session. And at that time, that felt like such a stretch. Like, she's paying me $50 for this time, like $50 a session. At that time, it was such a stretch for me to even, it was the first form of payment I was receiving. And I vowed to energetically show up for her with my whole heart, soul, mind, every piece of me, as if I was getting paid millions of dollars to be there. I was showing up with every ounce of me in my coaching presence and my coaching skills and my stepping into my confidence as a coach. And I just trusted that energy. I just trusted that if I continued to do that, the path would continue to unfold. And what's interesting is that one client, Sylvie, she started to tell her friends, and that one client became 3 clients, and 3 clients became 9 clients, and it expanded through word of mouth referral. I think at one point I was able to trace back, I did this like spider web of, referrals of all my one-on-one clients. And I was able to trace back an absurdly high percentage back to that original client because of the word of mouth, right? That she tells a couple friends who then, maybe I work with one of them who then tell other couple friends. And so it just spread. It spread outside, independent of social media. It was truly from word of mouth referrals.
Wow. I have 2 questions here. What would you think was the biggest learning that you received from Sylvie?
Those words that she shared with me, her reflection back to me, when that's not what I was looking for. I wasn't performing for her. I wasn't trying to impress her in any way. I wasn't trying to make her say that. And when she said it to me, it just hit me right in my heart. And I was in such a pure state of service with her, with no expectation of anything in return other than her progress and her progress in the coaching engagement, and her saying that. And I think I was in such an open state to receive it. It changed something in me. It made me believe in myself.
Yeah. How powerful that is. I can feel the energy of the words, and how sometimes we need someone to become the mirror so we can actually see it.
Absolutely. Oftentimes, I think we need others to be our mirror, and we need to be open enough to actually hear it and receive it and believe it.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for asking.
So when you coach Sylvie, you were still
Yes.
at your corporate job.
Yeah.
How long did it take for you to cook the business plan from Sylvie to the moment when you quit that job and said, I am full-time coach?
9 months. 9 months of all in. So the the seeds of the dream, the seedlings of the dream had been percolating for years before that. Years before that. And from that moment with Sylvie, and the moment I decided I'm doing this, I am all in. I am committed to this vision for my life with a relentless commitment to this vision for my life. My mind decided that, okay, you're all in. This is going to be a 2-year plan. This is going to be a 2-year. You're going to build your coaching practice up to the point where you could match your corporate salary, and then you could take the leap, because we weren't in a financial position for me to leave. I needed to be bringing in an income. And so my mind thought it'll be 2 years. And it ended up being 9 months, which is really interesting number for me, because at that time we were contemplating, do we try for a third baby? Because I had two beautiful babies. Or do I go all in on this business as my baby? And I decided I've had my babies. This is my third baby. This is like, I need to birth this thing in the world. And it felt like a labor of love. And so the 9-month gestation period felt very, I don't know, very serendipitous that it took 9 months from that time to when I was able to leave. Again, that might seem quick. Like when I think about it, that actually seems very fast. But the seedlings, again, I think there was some very important underground work being done leading up to that point, that were like planting the seeds of this dream to come to fruition in that short of a time frame. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes even before we even know what is the name of what we want to do, there is this already movement inside.
Yeah.
So if we come back to these 9 months, Taryn, how many times, for those who know the Mind Rebel concept, I would say, how many times did your Mind Rebel say, stop?
Oh,
You're crazy.
oh,
Come back to your senses. Cherish your corporate job. And for people who are not familiar with this, how many times the grips of fear started pulling towards the opposite direction?
Oh, Laura, so many times. That was such a tender time. Those actually might have been the most challenging in a different way, challenging with purpose, but like physically challenging, emotionally challenging time of my entire life. My kids were really little. I was coaching. I was working full time. I was coaching in the evenings and weekends. I was building, and the I always say, like, the bigger the dream, the bigger the rebel mind fears, you know? Yeah. And so what I remember prioritizing above absolutely everything else during that time was my mind work, my mind reset practices, tending to my rebel mind several times a day, because I knew if I didn't tend to her, this dream wasn't going anywhere. I would not get to where I want to be. And so I was relentless in my in prioritizing that. And so that looked at that time, that looked like finding the only pockets of space I had in my day to tend to her. So at that time, my kids were really little, and I would be getting on the bus. I remember this just like it was yesterday. I would be getting on the bus to go to work at 6:30 a.m. My kids would get up at 5:30 a.m. If I wanted my morning space to tend to my rebel mind and to do my, I used to set my alarm for 4:30 in the morning just to have that time to myself, to tend to my inner child, before I tended to my own children. And then I would use the time on the bus, because it was an hour bus ride, to meditate, and the bus home to meditate. I would sometimes, actually many times, we had an infirmary and in our office, which is like a sick room, like where you go when you're not feeling well, and there were 6 doors in it. I used to, on my lunch breaks, go in there and meditate just to reset myself. The amount of tending I needed to do to myself to do what I did was massive. And I needed to get really creative to find those moments where I could do that. I remember on the bus, because I really loved to meditate, but so on the bus, I used to bring this big scarf. Even in the summer, I used to bring this big scarf and wrap my neck around with the scarf so that my head would stay put. So that when I was meditating, I could really relax, like my head, so my neck wasn't flopping around. And I didn't care what anyone thought of me. I didn't care if people saw me coming out of the infirmary daily. I didn't care what anyone thought. This was my dream. This is what I needed to do for myself. And this was what I needed to prioritize to get there.
I think what you just shared is so important, because it is so easy to let fear take over, and to let our rebel minds start driving the bus back to the known, back to what we feel comfortable, even if we hate that reality. And the importance of tending towards what is inside. I think that is so, so important.
I knew that, and I still know that when I'm in my rebel mind or my guard, when that version of myself is driving the bus, I'm not seeing reality clearly. When I'm in my rebel mind, and this still happens to this day, it's not that this is, it's the perception is still there, the feelings, the fear is still there. It just feels a little different, or it looks a little different. But when I'm in my rebel mind or my guard, I think, especially when I'm deep in my rebel mind, everything feels impossible. I feel weak. I feel not enough. I feel shameful. I feel fear. And I'm moving through the world through that lens. So it's how do you chase a big dream in that lens? It's not possible. So, but I know that is a part of me. That rebel mind, she's not going anywhere. She's a part of me. I can't shut her up. I can't wish her away. The only thing I can do is tend to her. And when I'm stretching really outside my comfort zone, she's really activated, because stretching outside of my comfort zone and doing things out of the ordinary and doing things that I've never done before, that's very scary for her. And so I can't ignore her. She's too loud inside. It's like she's way too loud. So the only thing I can do is move towards her, tend to her, listen to her, nurture her, hold her, just like I would my crying child, like just love her. Say, I see you. I see how much we are stretching right now. I see how scary this feels to you right now. And I've got you. I've got you. And so those meditations, those times in where I would go inside, those 4:30 a.m. mornings, those bus rides, those infirmary sessions, every single one of those pockets of time was so that I could go inward and tend to her, and 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 just be with her and hear her and listen and hold her and take her by the hand. When we spend time in our internal world like that, that's the doorway. She's the doorway to my soul. She's the doorway to my deepest knowing. She's the door. And I believe this with every ounce of my being, Laura. I believe that when God places a vision inside of our hearts, a yearning, a true yearning inside of our hearts, I believe it's real. Like, I believe it was placed there. I believe it's divine. It's real. And if the divine is placed there is a divine part of us that knows how to get there. Mm-hmm. And we just need to access that voice inside to shine a light on those next steps right in front of us, because that part of us knows how to get there. And our rebel mind is the access point to that voice. So the more time I spent with my rebel mind, in communion with my rebel mind, nurturing her, the more she opened to receiving that wisdom, to accepting, to listening, that still wise voice inside that knows something that she doesn't know yet. Mm-hmm. And step by step by step by step, that gap was closed. But it was painstaking. Yeah. And again, the prioritization of that needed to take precedence over absolutely everything else in my life.
You know what is, it's always been clear, but by listening to your story, it's like I'm feeling like it's right here in front of me, how essential it is to have clarity on what the vision is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Because if we don't have that, even if the details are still blurry, but the main idea of the vision, that's the only way that we have our why, right?
That's
and
right.
I remember in, I think it was practitioner training, that you told us that actually we have two main roles. Mm-hmm. The first one is to be clear in our vision, so we know where we want to go. And the second is to do our inner work, like to take care of all the different parts of us. And I truly believe that this rebel mind is a sacred part of who we are, and that we could never ever look at the other side, our authentic side, if it wasn't for this other essential aspect of who we are. And then trusting that divine God, universal wisdom will support us in the rest.
Yeah, and that is it, Laura. That is knowing where you're going. It is this fine dance, this fine balance, knowing where you're going, getting so clear on the vision. That is your North Star. getting so clear on what it is that you most deeply yearn for. And that doesn't mean you have to have all the outer details mapped out. In fact, sometimes when my mind goes too much into the outer details, it creates, what happens is my mind creates wants to create all the house. In fact, that's my guard. So I got my rebel mind who just doesn't want to, just wants to stay put. My rebel mind's like, please don't grow anymore. Like, you just like, stop. Just stop, please. No more visions, no more growing, no more doing anything scary ever again, please. That's what my rebel mind wants. And then I've got my guard who kind of vacillates in between my authentic self and my rebel mind. And my guard's persona, she's Brienne of Tarth from Game of Thrones. So she is so powerful in a work ethic kind of way. She is like a loyal, fierce, will protect my rebel mind to like no end, but she also, what happens is when I've defined a vision, it's a very slippery slope where my guard will say, okay, I'm on board. I see the vision. Now I will get you there. And then my guard wants to map out every single detail along the path because my guard feels safe inside of a plan, wants to control everything, right? And I have this slippery slope where the vision is like inspired, created from my yearnings. It's inspired, and then all of a sudden, somewhere along the way, Brienne of Tarth takes over, and it's like stressful. It's like challenging. I'm off in the bushes. I'm on the detoured route. And that's a reminder to come back home, to go tend to myself, right? And to come back home to myself and to continue to do my inner work. But it's so important to know what it is you yearn for, what it is you want, and then to that tending to our inner worlds is the quickest way to close that gap. It really, really is.
Yeah, absolutely. So if we take all this work that you did for such a long time, but for those 9 months, and then you said you quit your job, you are out in the world saying, I am a full-time coach, and you already had your clients, so the pacing was stable, I guess. What were the in terms of business oriented actions, what were the first steps that you took? For example, did you create a website? Did you create the branding, a logo? Did you call for an accountant? You created, what were like the main steps that you, Taryn, followed?
Okay. So the very first thing I did was I created a website, and I created at the time my coaching practice. So this is actually a little bit, if we could rewind a little bit, because I created that website before I had left. And at that time, my website or my business name was called Shift. I think it was called Shift Coaching. And so I had a little website. The person I worked with, we did an exchange. She created my brand. I did coaching with her. And so I needed to find a place for people to land because I wasn't on social media then. Or if I was, it was not big in any way strategic. I don't even think I was on social media then. I think I was just trying to stay off social media for as long as humanly possible. And that was the first thing I did. My invoices were Word documents. I kept track of everything on an Excel spreadsheet of like, I'll never forget my first year actually doing taxes. And it's my husband's uncle is my accountant, and he looked at it and said, "Oh my God, this is a disaster. This is a mess. I didn't know that you had to start charging HST after $30,000 in Ontario. I didn't know any of this. I learned everything the hard way from making mistakes, just doing it wrong." And And so the first thing I did was I created a website. Second thing I did was register a business. The third, so in Ontario, you register a business. The third thing I did was I created a weekly email called Your Monday Morning Pep Talk. And I continued that for years and years and years. In fact, I think it was just 2 years ago, maybe a year or 2 years ago, 2 years ago now, that I stopped doing Monday morning pep talks. And when I first sent my first email, I had 5 people on my mailing list, and one was my husband, the other was Dawn. You know, it was people, friends and family, and then after that, I started to dabble in, okay, I'm gonna try social media. I'm gonna try posting some of these pep talks on social media. And it's just kind of, it was, you know, kind of slow and steady. That's how I would describe it.
Taryn, for how many years did you coach before you shifted to teaching and creating the MRA Academy?
So that's a great question. I started my coach training in 2012. So I started coaching my peers in 2012, just like you all do in coach training. And then the Mind Rebel Academy began in 20. Yeah,
6 years.
6 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Could you feel comfortable sharing a little bit about pricing? I remember Sylvie paid $50
That's
for
right.
her sessions.
Yes.
More than the amount is like, how often, or what was your process? Or maybe it's still the process for you to sit and say, okay, how much am I comfortable or uncomfortable enough, but in alignment to charge now? From that very first session with Sylvie to the last day you coach someone.
Okay. So pricing was always at the beginning felt like an uncomfortable, strange thing. And I hear this so often with coaches. How can I charge for something so beautiful? Or how can I charge for something I love to do? And so that first, I think, you know, you had asked me earlier in this conversation something to the effect of, what did Sylvie teach me? Or I can't remember your exact words, Laura, but another thing Sylvie taught me was her happily paying me $50 per session also changed something in me. And it was the first time I had received money for my coaching skills. Everything else to that point had been bartering. I'd built all the stuff in my coaching business through bartering for services. And that was also a powerful moment to actually receive money for this thing that I love to do. And it normalized that, no, actually, I can receive money for this. Like, I am actually, like, I'm worth this. And so throughout in my coaching practice, I would set a price. So Sylvie set this benchmark. I shouldn't say Sylvie. I said the number. I said the number, and she just said, yep. I probably could have said more than that, and she might have said, yep. But at that time, that was my personal max of what I thought someone would pay me for my services. And then I coached at that price point. And then all of a sudden, my worth and my confidence started to increase. And I started to think, like, I can actually charge a little bit more than this. And I remember my next price point was $85 a session. So I jumped, anyone new coming on, I jumped to $85 a session. And then I jumped to $120 a session. And then so it was like I did my price point until it felt no longer aligned to what I was giving. And what I also did was I always had, I also had room. So I had I had price points in my business, but I also always had room to adjust that price point depending on what the client's personal situation was.
Mm.
So there was a time where I was working with a lot of single mothers. And so I ended up creating a price point just for single mothers who had one income and mouths and babies to feed. And I was able to do that because I was able to charge a certain price point at other stages of my business. So at first, Laura, it was completely energetic. It was completely numbers I was literally just pulling out of my head because this is what I felt like. Like it was just a feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And then it became a little bit more strategic in that I started working with a financial coach who had me start to really look at all of the other. So there's what you do in a session, but as a business owner, as you know, Laura, there's what you do outside of sessions, which is 75% of what you do in your business is not in session. Or you are doing your administrative work. You are writing content to attract more clients in. You are doing all these activities that don't equal any. As an entrepreneur, you're not getting paid for those hours like you are in a job. And so what she had me look at was, well, how much do I want to make? Like not just energetically, what do I feel like I deserve for this 1 hour of work, but like actually, what do I actually want to bring in my business so that I can live comfortably and also be compensated properly for all of the activities that I have to do in my business to make it a thriving coaching practice. And so the first thing she had me do is she actually had me write down all of my home expenses, all of my business expenses to help me realize, like, what do I actually need to bring in just to even cover that?
Mm-hmm.
And then what did I want to pay myself above and beyond that? And that exercise set a price point of the amount of income my business needed to bring in a month. And that was a very different, I had to think of things differently now. I had to think, okay, if I need to bring in this amount of money a month, $5,000, $10,000, whatever the number is, if I need to bring in $5,000 a month to pay my bills and to pay myself, and then what does that mean? How many clients do I actually have space to work with in a month? At one point in my coaching practice, I was seeing, 4, sometimes 5 clients in a day. And that was also getting quite exhausting because
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have space to do the other things that I needed to do in the business. And so I just had to rethink, well, how many clients can I actually serve in a week? And then based on that, what would I need to charge for my services to make those two things work? The number of clients I can serve and the amount of money I need to bring in a month to live and to thrive. And so it became a little bit more strategic, and that helped to also shift my mind to, yes, when I think about running a soul-led business, I always let my feelings lead first. Like my feelings, my deepest feelings and my knowings, that leads. But that also needs to be shaped and informed by real strategy and real numbers and reality. And
Mm-hmm.
it's the marriage between those two things that I think makes a very successful soul-led business. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. But I am thinking now, you mentioned this financial advisor or
Yeah.
coach. At what point in your coaching business did you actually reach out for
Yeah.
because when we start, we know that there are so much help that we would need, right? The branding, the website, the social media, community manager, etc., etc. And then there is the accounting. But then where do we get all the funds?
Yeah.
So
Where do you
how
invest?
exactly
Yeah.
where do we invest first?
Yeah.
So for you, this financial advice, or when did she or he come?
So I'm not sure if this is because I'm a naturally risk adverse person, or it was also probably because we were just not in a financial position to go into any more debt for my business. And I wanted to operate debt free. I really wanted to operate. I only wanted to spend what I could afford to spend in my business. So I don't think I spent a penny on my business. Again, most of it was bartering for services to build my website, build my first logo, until I left my corporate job. And so I left my corporate job in the month of March, and it was that summer that I hired my first business coach. And it was that business coach that taught me those principles that she had learned from her financial coach. And that financial coach was someone who I later hired, who I when I was doing the MRA, and she helped set some structures up for the MRA. But that initial investment was the summer I left my corporate job, and it was the biggest investment. And it was a bigger investment than my coach training was. It was a massive, and some of these business mentorship programs are quite big investments. So here's how I make those decisions. Because there are, like you said, Laura, there are so many people out there and ways of doing things and experts and mentors, and where do you even start? Do you even need it all? Like my having a soul-led business means to me, the continuous prioritization in my day to tap in, to continue to tend to my rebel mind, because she's very much there. And every time I'm in a business growth spurt or changing things up or doing something different, she gets very loud and she needs a lot of tending to. So the idea of making a massive investment in a business mentor, in a business mentorship program, I needed to spend a lot of time within myself to determine, is this my next step? And the more I spend time inside asking that question and not making excited decisions. So for me, I have to ride a wave. I have to get excited about something. I have to let it crash. And if it comes back to a really healthy, not too excited, not crashing, but like a really like that steady, yes, that steady, strong, I'm going to do this. That is where those are the best financial decisions I have ever made in my business, is when I can find that state. And so investing in my first business mentorship program, I was able to, even though it was scary, I was able to access that. And then I said to myself, okay, I am making the biggest investment in myself that I've ever made. And I am going to squeeze every opportunity out of this mentorship. I am going, that summer before it had started, after saying yes, I read every single money mindset book I could get my hands on. I was like, at that point, there was no, like, failure was not an option. Like, I now know I didn't have a job now. Like now I'm an entrepreneur. Now I just made this big investment. Failure couldn't be an option. It was just like I had babies to feed and a mortgage to pay. And so I was like hungry. I knew that there was a next level that I was yearning towards. And that next level had everything to do with opening up the gates of prosperity and abundance in my business. And I knew that, yes, I needed to learn strategy and I needed to learn messaging and I needed to learn positioning, yada, yada, yada. I needed to learn all those things. But more importantly, I needed to crack something open in my mind to actually believe I was worthy, to receive it, to believe it. I knew that that was a key. And so I dove into every freaking book, every podcast I could get my hands on. And that summer, I just watched my mind grow and expand and get bigger and bigger and bigger. And as I did that, my capacity to receive mirrored that. I will say, Laura, and maybe this is a conversation now or to put a pin in it for the future, but I've also made really poor I shouldn't say poor. I've made investment decisions in my business since then that have not been in alignment with that part of me. I have made decisions, expensive decisions, that were coming from a different part of me. A part of me that thought, oh, I need to do this thing, or, oh, I hate this part of my business. I just want to give it away and throw money at it and make someone else make this better, or listening to the experts of what they thought my business needed at the time. And so it didn't come from that really aligned place. And because of that, there was no ROI on those investments. Let's just put it that way. They were that you could say financial failures, but huge, huge, very, very important internal lessons for me that changed me inside those failures.
I will come back to that because that is very rich. I want to know if, and I'm speaking from my own experience, you are at a certain price and then you realize that in order to be okay with your budget and be okay with what you feel you are worth and your work is worth, then you have to make a big jump. For example, let's say charging from $100 to $285.
Yeah. So over doubling your price.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would like to know if this has happened to you, and if it did, how did you navigate that? For me, I have allowed myself to make the jump being very uncomfortable. But I know I cannot go back. And it takes time for me to say, okay. And there is a moment when I say, how could I be charging less than this before?
Yes.
But how has been that for you?
Very uncomfortable. Like very uncomfortable. And scary, because every time I think there are all sorts of different ways we up level in business, but charging more for what we do is a certain type of financial up leveling. And every time I've up leveled in that way, especially in big ways, when I've realized, oh my goodness, like I've been charging this, and it's like, this is not even enough to pay my bills, or I need to charge more, and I'm worth more. Every time I've done that in a big way, there's also there's the internal, okay, energetic claiming, I know this is what I'm worth, I know, and like owning that number and claiming it. And then what I find happens after that is I wish that the universe would respond by, okay, I've claimed it, and now the universe is going to bring me all sorts of clients who are going to match that price point. And that was the hard part, was just claiming it. But that's not the hard part. The hard part actually comes after claiming it. The hard part comes after you've claimed it, and then you get a bunch of no's. That's the hard part. And then you doubt yourself, you doubt your worth. You want to go backwards. You want to go back to the price you were at, even though it wasn't energetically matched. And then your lack and the lack comes in and the fear comes in. The hard part is claiming it, continue to claim it, despite the fact that the universe hasn't energetically matched you yet. So there's like this waiting period that happens. And that typically actually might look like less sales for a while. So you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready for that and continue to own what it is that you need, you yearn to charge for your work in the world. And that's the hard part. And if you can, that's the time. Those are the true growth spurts. It's in that waiting period after you've claimed it and before it's arrived. It's in that growth. That's a growth spurt.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really uncomfortable time. And that's the time. I think back to the question you asked me. I claimed I wanted to be an entrepreneur. And in that 9-month window was an intense growth spurt before the vision actually came to fruition. And during that time, during that growth spurt, the most important thing we can do is our inner work. Without that, we probably will go backwards, go back to the old price point, go back to the old job, release the vision, release those elements of the vision. That's not possible for me. Look, the universe is not responding to what I wanted. That's where people turn around and go back. It's holding strong, so holding true, steady, unwavering. This is what I deserve. This is what I yearn for. This is a vision and a seed that has been planted in my heart from the divine so that I can do my work in the world and thrive, because I deserve to thrive and do my work in the world. It doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think that building a soul-led business, like this is what I mean. This is the work of trusting that inner knowing of your soul, trusting those yearnings, whether they be for more abundance or prosperity or freedom or meaning or whatever it might be, that's real. And there's a part of you that knows how to get there. And the fearful part of us, the rebel mind or the guard that wants to protect, has other paths, has other ideas. And we don't want to let them and their ideas drive the bus, because that just takes longer to get to where we're going, because we're going to get there. But it just takes longer when they're driving the bus. And so in order for our souls to drive the bus, we need to spend more time in the energy of our soul to breathe through the fear, breathe through the no's we're going to get from clients who are not energetically aligned to that price point. Breathe through the, oh, I'm not enough, or oh, this will never happen for me. Tend to ourselves, to reconnect to that voice inside that's telling you to simply put one foot in front of the other. That's it. One foot. That's it. And to ride this wave of the growth spurt.
Taryn, I have this is something that we have spoken before, you and I, but I think it's something that for the audience it's really important. Knowing you, I know that you are a very humble and spiritual person, and that's the only reason why I chose you. Like I couldn't say no to that energy. When you are run by these two elements, spirituality and being humble, being really close to earth, it can happen that you feel this doubt of, am I allowed to charge hundreds or thousands of dollars and be letting a certain amount or a big amount of people without the capacity of receiving what I have to offer? When it comes to more to the spiritual level, is how can you provide that and at the same time set very high prices? So would you like to share something around this idea? How have you navigated that reflection?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of elements. I've had to really look at my own stories of earning money and the over many years of examining this, I've had to look at stories I've told myself about high earners and money and wealth and charging money for something you love, charging money for something so good. I've also reached points in my business where I was charging so little, what I thought was a lot at the time, but at one point in my business I had this price point and I was charging this price point, and my practice really it was at around a time where my practice really got very, very busy. And so I was charging at this price point and my schedule was completely full. But I was just bringing in enough to pay my bills. There was no, and as an entrepreneur, we don't have benefits. We don't have retirement plans. We don't have those things. So it was also this humble realization that, hey, if I want to do this work in the world, I have to take care of myself. I have to take care of my family. I have to take care of my future. I have to bring in a certain amount of income a month. Defining that number was very, very important to me because that set a benchmark. It's like what you said about the vision. The same was true about my number. I need this number to live the life that I want to live in my vocation and plan for my future and have safety and have, things like benefits that no longer we didn't have. And so setting that number became part of the vision, and almost like this became very important. Like you said, if we don't know where we're going, before when I was setting numbers, it was all in feelings. I don't know. I didn't even know how much I was bringing in because I didn't know, right? But setting that number and making that realization was eye-opening. And then based on that number, then I could start to get creative inside that number. How did I want to bring that number in? So there's so, as coaches, as entrepreneurs, there's so many, part of my favorite part of entrepreneurship is the creativity that we get to have we get to create whatever we want to create. There are no bounds to what we get to create as entrepreneurs. I remember in the corporate world feeling I had zero room for creativity. There was no creative expression at all. It was do your job, get your paycheck. Here, we're not guaranteed a paycheck, but wow, do we have...
That's the price to pay.
That's the price we pay. But wow, do we have endless possibilities for creativity. And so it's living inside of, so that's my favorite part of entrepreneurship. And I needed to bring in a paycheck every month like that. I needed, in order to do this, I needed that to live and pay our bills. So those two things had to coexist. They had to be true. It had to be true that I could earn that level of income, and I could do it in ways that feel really good. I remember working with a business coach or maybe it was at a time where I was observing a business coach online talking about how 15-minute intensive coaching session with her was worth $2,000. And I was like, or something ridiculous. And I was like, I couldn't even get my words out to you in 15 minutes. Like I wouldn't even, that would be so stressful being a client, paying that. It was to me, I just can't compute. Maybe it works. I don't know. Maybe my mindset hasn't gotten there yet. I don't know. But I think for me, I think my truth is that just doesn't feel real. Like it doesn't feel like it just something about that can't compute. That level of high ticket for that much of what you're going to get from someone doesn't compute.
Mhm.
So I had to get right within myself to think, how did I creatively, how do I want to price my offers, or what do I want to offer to the world that can get me to that number a month? And some of that is going to be my flagship big coaching offer, which at that time was a 4-month the Mind Rebel coaching curriculum, where we meet every week. I take them through a curriculum. They've got access to me in between sessions. That had to be a certain price point, that because they were getting so much of me. And then I thought, well, and then what other offers do I want to have for soulmate clients who might not be able to afford that, or might not want that level of, that level of service. And so I was able to get creative inside of, and that was really before there was a lot of online things like, and so my gosh, now when I look at it now, the opportunities for coaches to create online courses, or at that time I was doing retreats, like lower priced retreats, or summer workshops. I did teen workshops one summer, teen camps one summer, and they were priced at a point where I could price it a little bit lower because it was in a group setting, and so it became more accessible to more people. And then if anyone wanted to work with me one-on-one, it was my big offer, which was more expensive. So the mixture of offers, the suite of offers, if you will, I had to get right with what were those suite of offers and what were the price points within those suite of offers, so that I could touch and I could
Mhm.
create offers for all sorts of different people. And it brought me what I needed to thrive. And
Mhm.
I think that there's for empaths, for people who are spiritual, for people who are, like, as you say, humble. And for my journey anyway, there was a switch in my business brain over my journey of entrepreneurship, where I had to stop first thinking about others, and I had to first think about fueling and feeding myself. And then how did I want to serve others? There had to be that switch. And that to me is like self-love. Does that, am I describing that right, Laura?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like leading by example, because what you are actually offering to your clients is that vision where they need to take care of themselves, and they are allowed to dream and to bring into their lives what they are really yearning for. So you have to start by doing that yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And a word that is making absolute sense to me, and I'm kind of receiving it in a different way, is the word creativity. Like to be creative and to bring elements in how we can reach many people, and be more like have all different kinds of offers.
Yeah.
So people who are meant to arrive will come into our universe. And I think that is actually a very important key For me, I know it was like the possibility to offer free Reiki healing circles
Mm-hmm.
and to welcome anyone who are in need of those connections has been a wonderful gift. So I am keeping this creativity word in my heart. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna ask you kind of an opposite question. What would you say to a coach like that is starting, like an early coach, an early stage coach, but that has been that, like, let's say an MRA coach who has received and who has seen you uh, um, thrive in your business, and that has been receiving the influence of many powerful coaches and leaders and guides, and that sees that, oh my God, for example, in the business one that you offered, there are so many talented specialists. And we have this idea that, oh my God, okay, so they are already successful, they have already this stable, steady income, maybe. So even if I am starting, I have been trained to connect to my worth. And I think I'm going to start at a high ticket right away.
Mm-hmm.
But then when we go into real life, we realize that it's not always easy, either because we need more experience, either because we need to do more this inner work. And then there is a lot of frustration. I have seen a couple of colleagues going through that. So what would you say to someone like feels the pressure to, okay, I need to start big and I need to make the big jump, and it's going to be a high ticket because I
Yeah.
have paid a lot of money in this training and I deserve it.
Yeah.
What would be your words?
I think that I think that there is, I think especially now more than ever, there are, when you go on social media, when you anywhere you look, you see, especially if you're a coach and you probably got in your feed, you've got business mentors, you've got business experts, you've got other coaches, it's probably what you're surrounded by, and you might see or you might hear all the sexy, flashy highlights of what you should be doing or what other people are doing, and then there can be a tendency to get wrapped it up in that, and then you might this is reminding me of, I remember when I worked with my first business mentor, and I worked with her for a while, and it was right around the time I was actually closer to the end of our work together. I was starting to transition from one-on-one coaching to the MRA. The MRA was just starting to be born. And I remember being in this energy of these, so it was a mastermind type, and this business mentor was all about high ticket, everything. It was high ticket everything. And all the women in this group were these powerful women who were just like everyone was high ticket. And I remember this business mentor trying to encourage me to charge $20,000 for the coach training, the very first coach training that I wanted to do with the MRA. And I remember feeling like in the energy, I was like, oh yes, I could do this. Yes, I'm going to claim this, and this is what I'm going to do. And then I would sit with myself after and I would be like, oh, it doesn't feel right. I don't know. It just doesn't. And it was different than fear. It was an unsettledness that I couldn't shake. And I think that discernment between fear
Yeah.
and something that's not quite sitting right in your soul is important to discern and to spend time discerning. Because I could have easily said, that's my rebel mind. I got to push through that and made it $20,000, and it just energetically wouldn't have landed. And so I spent a lot of time with myself inside that discomfort. What is this? Is this an unaligned choice? Is this not sitting right? And the truth of the matter is, it wasn't sitting right with me. It wasn't my price. It was what I thought. It was what experts thought I should be charging for my worth, And so, what's always been important for me in pricing has been that I choose for me, and that it's not coming from anyone outside of me. It's mine. I choose it. It's my soul's calling it. My soul's deciding it. Whenever I have made a choice in my business, Laura, that my soul decides and chooses, it has never been wrong. Never. It's maybe not, again, there's sometimes that, and not sometimes, there's always that waiting period, right before I claim something that I yearn for and before life starts to organize around me. And there can be a wanting to give up in that waiting period. But I think the true work is this discernment, because I could have also claimed that price point that I'm claiming, I'm going to push through the fear, I'm going to claim it, but just like not quite sitting right. But I could have confused that with fear. And then I'm not sure what would have happened to my business, Laura. Would the universe have ever caught up? Maybe, I don't know. But I think the work is this discernment inside of, what do I claim for myself? No matter what anyone is saying outside of us, or what this person over here is charging, or what this school or this coach or what this person's doing, shut it all. If you're finding yourself, if you're swirling around in that energy right now, shut everything down. Turn it all off. Shut the noise down and go inside and find your answers. Find a good coach who can help hold space for you to evoke those answers within if you need it, or go get your journal or go meditate, because there is a wisdom inside of you that knows every answer to the question you have. And our work here is to get still enough and quiet enough to access that. And we're not always going to access it perfectly, but we want to get closer to it. Whenever I have truly accessed that, I've always been steered in the steady and true direction, always. And oftentimes it's gone against what everyone else is saying to do. Does that answer the heart of the question?
Absolutely. And it's so important that you shared your experience. I truly feel that it's kind of dangerous what is happening in the coaching, well-being, and spiritual realms, even in the feminine world, where we have to empower women. We are strong. We are capable of everything. Look, you can dream anything you want. You just need to set your mind, and it's gonna be. And I am kind of scared. And it happened to me at certain point when I was finishing maybe the business mentorship that I did at MRA. I started to really get all this energy and look, because the web knows, like, what are you doing? If you are selling pancakes, you're gonna have 5,000 sorts of different pancakes. So because I am in the industry, then I receive coaching and meditation and Reiki, but all this is like high ticket, go for the best. And I started noticing that I was being really anxious
Mhm.
and feeling that I was being short, not good enough,
Mhm.
because I was saying, oh my God, look what she's already doing. And she already has her website and she has the beautiful fancy ticket. And I was like, oh my God, I'm still doing my,
Excel spreadsheet.
I'm still today, even 7 years later, maybe I'm a little lazy, but I'm still doing my Word invoices. Anyways, so thank you for sharing that because I think it's beautiful that we encourage ourselves and we encourage women to thrive and to claim our dreams. But we all have our own pacing.
We all have our own pace, our own timing. You know, that the story that I told about leaving the corporate world within 9 months, I don't think there was anything. It's that 9 months seems short. And it's what am I trying to say? I think I'm trying to say that I don't that's not a badge of honor I wear, that like I was able to leave my corporate job within 9 months. To me, that was that was some kind of divine timing. That was not that was not my timing. And I'll tell you something, Laura, there have been elements of my vision that I said, I feel like this might happen in like a year. And it's years later, it still hasn't happened, and I don't see that as a failure. I see that's not my timing. It's just, this is divine timing. This is again what it means to build a soul-led coaching, any business, a soul-led business. The timing doesn't really belong to you. We can, right? It's what's most important is not the timing. And anytime I've gotten wrapped up in timing, I'm in the hows. Anytime my mind is wrapped up in timing or what other people are doing or what I think I should be doing, my guard is driving the bus. All those bad financial decisions I made, Brienne of Tarth made.
She is responsible.
She is fully responsible for those poor choices. And big lessons did we learn. So I call them expensive lessons. That's what they were. But our job is twofold, as we talked about earlier. Our job on this path of building a soul-led coaching business, I shouldn't just say coaching, a soul-led business, period, or a soul-led life, is defining the vision. What do you want to create for your life? Get into your creative juices. And that could be as broad as, I have freedom in my day. I am connecting with like-minded individuals. I am being compensated abundantly for what I do in the world. I am running groups. I'm running retreats. I am making an impact. Whatever it is, it's going to look different for everybody because no one else is in your heart. No one else has those seeds planted within. It could be a life of complete solitude, whatever it is. And it's going to change. And there's going to be different expressions of it as you grow older and as you grow as a human being. And so having your finger on the pulse of what the vision is and how it's evolving and how it's changing and tapping into it and defining it, being in it, writing about it, like just living in the energy of it, defining it. That's the first thing we need to do, is that. And then once we've got that and we're connected to the energy of that, then our work is to come back home to ourselves, meaning create space within our day to check in with our inner worlds. Check in with that rebel mind, that guard, who's driving the bus? What do these elements of ourselves need? Checking in with ourselves, coming back to our place of alignment where there is a still, calm voice of knowing that knows the way from here to there. And that still, calm voice of knowing will only reveal a couple steps at a time. When I am in my house trying to map out every step of the journey, Brienne of Tarth is driving the bus. And that's not where I want to operate from. When I'm in my soul and connected to myself, I only have 1 to 3 steps ahead of me. So follow those. It's like a little breadcrumb trail. Follow those steps. And that defines the timeline, not our strategic minds and how hard we can work. And so sometimes the timeline is shorter than my strategic mind thought it would be. Like, for instance, when I thought it was going to be 2 years and it was actually 9 months, sometimes it's a lot longer than my strategic mind thinks it's going to be. And can we release that? Can we hold those timelines loosely? Can we release what we think should be the way? Because when we think we know, or we think it should be this way, we're operating from an unaligned place within. That's the dance. That's the dance.
And we need to let that sink. Taryn, I don't want to put you on the spot, but I think we're going to need another session because we are 90 minutes now, and I just have started with not even half of my list of questions.
We can do a part 2. I would love to do a part 2.
Okay, would you be comfortable sharing one of your expensive lessons and your
Yes.
failures?
All right. Yes.
And how did you at that time, but in general, how do you recover?
All right. So there was 1 year in particular in my business that I got really wrapped up in the idea of growth. And I thought that growth is what's interesting is that for me, business, I shouldn't say growing a business, being an entrepreneur has been the outlet of my life, the key area of my life that has probably been the most challenging area of my life. Far more challenging in my experience than motherhood, than all these other areas of my life. This has been the most challenging area of my life and the greatest outlet for my growth. And so I have had to reframe what entrepreneurship means to me. It is an outlet for growth for me. I'm not sure if that's true for every entrepreneur. Probably not. Maybe just the really sensitive ones. It's true for me because entrepreneurship, like I said before, there's no guarantees. There's no security. There is unlimited potential, but there's no guarantees. And that vastness can feel terrifying. Whereas when I was in a corporate job, there was a steady paycheck and somewhat of a trajectory to get a little bit higher over 30 years of your career. It was soul-sucking to me, but at least it was safe inside this small trajectory, right? Here, there's no ceiling on my income potential. There's no barriers in today's world of online, in the country that we live in the, like with the, that there's no barriers to what we can create as entrepreneurs, and there's no guarantees. That vastness is the most terrifying thing in the entire universe to my little rebel mind who craves constant security and safety. So in that context, this has been the scariest thing I've ever embarked on for her. The scariest experience of my life for her. So going back to your original question of mistakes I made, there was a particular year in the MRA where Brienne of Tarth really took over. And when she takes over, it's in business. It's not in class. You'd never notice it, right? She's not there in classes. She's not there when she's with students, but in business, she kind of starts to take the wheel because she wants to create security and safety for the like the little one hiding in a cave, like, right? And so there was a while where I was very much focused on growth. I thought growth would create safety and security. And that's what I needed. And so I made a couple investments that year, one of which was I invested in Facebook advertising. I don't think there's anything wrong with Facebook advertising. That might be the right choice for some people. But here's the thing. I really dislike Facebook, like strongly dislike Facebook. I don't like being on there. It actually, it dysregulates me when I'm on there. There's too many dingers. There's too much going on. I get lost in all the notifications. It stresses me out. It's just anxiety inducing. Never liked the application. I don't like Facebook. But I thought that, and I had experts telling me, Taryn, you're at this stage of your business, and if you want to get to this next level, it's time to invest in Facebook ads. Okay. I found an amazing Facebook ad manager who, I just adore her. I still adore her. But it was very expensive, not just to hire a Facebook ads manager, but to run Facebook ads. We're talking thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And I remember just wanting to like give her my problem of like growth, just like make it better, Katie, just like make it better, make it better, make it better. And not wanting to be involved in the process, just like, just like Facebook and your algorithms and your ads, just throw money at it and make it all better. And it was coming from this, just not a good, solid place inside of me. And of course, it just was a big money hole, to the point where my sweet Facebook ads manager had to sit down with me and say, I think you need to stop. Like, who says that? Right? I care about you too much that I think you need to stop. The algorithms on Facebook are going crazy. No one's getting visibility. This is like the worst time to do this kind of thing. I don't want to keep taking your money. I think you need to stop. And I was like, okay, I will. Probably $50,000 later. Expensive lessons. That same year, I had made another investment. Similar energy, just wanting to fix the problem. There was something that was problematic and I wanted to fix it. Whenever I'm in that energy, it's wrong. It's the wrong energy. And that year led to a culmination in poor marketing choices. And that actually leading into what was looking like a looming recession. And so now we had all these massive marketing expenses, and our sales were dropping because of a looming recession. And we got to a point where I realized that we were actually in trouble financially. And that was a very terrifying moment, Laura. Like, I could still cry right now, even thinking about that time. I remember exactly where I was when I was looking at the numbers and looking at the trajectory and thinking, if something doesn't massively change, there will be no MRA next year. This is scary. And that was the lowest point in my business that I have ever experienced. I have a newfound appreciation and reverence and respect for people who lose everything in their business, because I felt like I was on a cusp of that could be a reality if we had kept going in that direction. That could have been a possibility. That moment changed everything. So you asked, how did I pick myself back up after that? Scraped myself up off the floor. My daughter still talks about that moment because I had a complete and utter breakdown. And I remember being in the kitchen, trying to hold it all together, trying to like, don't cry, don't scream, don't let the kids see that I am just and I remember my husband coming home from work and just looking at him and just bursting into tears and like a puddle on the floor, and him just holding me, and then the kids coming and just holding me. And I think I'm still getting emotional about it. It was really scary. And my daughter still talks about that moment of watching me become this puddle. And that was a moment where all of the unhealthy behavior that I had been, that Brienne of Tarth had been doing in the business to fix things and to throw money at things to just make it all work, all the blinders, like it's like the fog had cleared and all the blinders had to come off. And it was almost like I was sticking my head in the sand, not wanting to look at things. And I had to get my head out of the sand and look and pick myself back up and look at all these fear-based decisions that I had been making in the business and strip it all away and literally change how we operate. I looked at line by line our marketing budget and what we were spending money on. And I did this deep alignment practice of, is this right? Is this aligned? And Laura, all of it came off our budget. We went down to $0 in marketing the next year. All of it, all of it, all of it gone. All of it was released. All of it was cleaned up. And cleaned up, got into such aligned financial integrity. Every single, that's actually at the time where I realized that I can actually not be the CFO of this business and the CEO of this business. I needed help. I was around the time where Kaylee, who's now part of the team, came in, and God love her. Together, we worked through every cent we spent, every subscription, every penny we put money into, and went through a process of asking ourselves, is this in alignment? We looked at and we wanted to make sure that every dollar was intentionally placed somewhere, and got into such pure financial integrity. She took over all the finances because I had to realize that this is not my area of expertise, clearly, but this is hers. And she holds it and cares for it with such reverence. And that changed everything. The next year was our most profitable year ever. And I believe it was the universe responding to us, responding to our commitment, our devotion, our reverence, looking at it, doing the hard thing, getting in touch with our souls and where we were guided to go. And that could have not happened had that breakdown not happened. So the way I now, think of these things is those were the most important lessons as an entrepreneur.
Receiving your story brings me to connect to the truth that what we may see as mistakes and failures are in fact precious gifts for growth and evolution. And it really sounds that this one has been an amazing gift that the universe allowed you to receive.
An incredible gift that changed the way we operate for the better and created so much safety and security and integrity inside the way we operate and receive and spend money. We created this piece of writing, and it was called the MRA's Commitment to Financial Peace. And it was like our guiding pillars of how we receive money and how we intentionally spend it. And what are our guiding pillars that guide us in our deep devotion and reverence to financial peace within this business.
I would like to point out not only through the way in which you are sharing, but actually the experience itself, how much vulnerability was present, is still present. And as Brené Brown says, that aspect of the human condition, our vulnerability, is by embracing it and allowing ourselves to go through that, then we can actually see the other side. And it's a beautiful story that you are sharing with us.
Thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Being mindful of the time, we can decide later if there will be part 2, but I would like to close maybe with a question about how do you celebrate when you manage to calm Brienne of Tarth and Mind Rebel, and just authentic self is flourishing and leading the way.
Yeah, how do I celebrate? That's a great question. I think the key to accessing a state where I can actually really celebrate and sink into what is here now, because of course, as the vision unfolds, the vision over here is changing. So if we don't anchor into the present moment as to what is here now, it could feel that you're always chasing something, or you're always trying to get to some future state, and that's not a good feeling. That's not a good feeling to have. Gratitude for what is here right now is my connection to allowing myself to fully celebrate what is here. So I have a gratitude practice. Every morning I write down the 10 things that I'm most grateful for. And I write, so for example, this morning I started with my son. I'm so grateful for Cooper and I just write, and I write until my heart is oozing out of my chest, and then I move on to the next thing, and then I always the MRA is on that list. And I think about what has been created and the incredible souls that I have the honor of touching in this lifetime. Like you, Laura. How lucky am I that I just got to spend 2 hours with you in this conversation? And this is my job. This is what I get to do. Not stopping to recognize that or be grateful for that every single day. Life could just continue to just move on, and you're always striving for the next thing. And then you miss the celebrations, the small celebrations, the small wins along the way. Gratitude is, and a gratitude practice is what connects me to that.
What a beautiful way of ending our session today. We started when you said earlier, should we do something to ground ourselves and connect before hitting the recording? And we said, let's be just grateful. And we are coming back to that. Thank you, Taryn.
Thank you so much for all your beautiful and thoughtful questions, Laura.
It has been a privilege to be the recipient of your journey, your energy, your experience, and your wisdom. And I am sure, I have no doubt that this will translate in touching so many other souls that are trying to create a soul-led practice like yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being part of this conversation. If you are drawn to the MRA, it's more than likely that you are the go-to person for your people. You are here to deeply impact the lives of those you love and serve. And the MRA's mission is to support you in your life's work. To learn more about our suite of trainings, including our renowned flagship coach training, leadership trainings, and continuing coach education programs, please visit our website at www.themindrebel.com.